immunity to police so they could do their job. I'm giving federal immunity to police officers.
Trump said that just weeks after Sonia Massey was murdered in her own home by a police officer who she had called for help. The man who killed her, Deputy Sean Grayson, was indicted on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. Trump's immunity plan would have allowed Grayson to get away with murder, something law enforcement officers often already do. According to a Washington Post analysis, more than 1,000 people are killed by police every year in the U.S., and that number's been growing recently. 2023 was the deadliest year for homicides committed by law enforcement in a decade, leaving more than 1,200 dead. Officers were charged with crimes in only 10 of those cases, despite 95 of those killed being unarmed. But Trump wants to focus on granting immunity to police that would embolden them to commit even more violence. Legal experts and advocates warn that Trump's plan would put Black and brown Americans in more danger because they're far more likely than white Americans to be killed by police. Maya Wiley, an advocate and civil rights attorney, told The Grio, if there's no criminal accountability of police for criminal behavior, then we're living in a country that's becoming a police.
Well, I am attorney Michael Eline, and as you guys know, I am a civil rights and personal injury lawyer in California and Texas. And some of Trump's policies I think are really good, and some of them I think are bad. And some of them I think are just like political stunts. And this is going to be about I think a political stunt, offering qualified immunity to police. The president doesn't have any authority to offer any kind of immunity to state police. We're going to get into it a little bit more, and we're going to talk a little bit about how, in a roundabout way with judges who continue to uphold qualified immunity, that might be an argument. But we'll get into it a little bit, and, I'll ask you some questions and you can ask me some questions. Let's go ahead and kick it off really quick.
To another edition of Ask Michael Eline. This is where I teach people the law in an unorthodox manner by using examples that we see in the news, case law briefs, but it's all about exposing the Leviathan and its instrumentalities and taking back your rights. Know the law and mean to keep it well. Come here to learn from an expert to know your right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel.
So anyways, that is the kickoff. And that's right. I actually wrote a book called My Journey to Becoming a Practicing Lawyer with No Law Degree or Undergrad. You can get a digital copy of this by going to my YouTube page and clicking on the description. There's a link at the bottom. And I do teach people how to become a lawyer in an unorthodox manner. Getting my book will help support the channel. I'm a regular lawyer in the daytime, and I break away whenever I potentially can to do the shows. I'd like to be able to offer you more regular programming, but it's been really hard. But this is going to be an interesting show. And the first video that I showed you was obviously from a political activist who is, not a Trump supporter. And then, of course, we have Cardi B is really upset about this too. So everybody's coming out against Trump wanting to somehow extend qualified immunity to cops. And of course, we know that Trump is going after the police vote. He wants to get the families of law enforcement and all those people who have been sort of cast aside by the Soros prosecutors. And it's like these lines have been drawn. It's like either you support the police or you want to abolish the police. There's no in between. There's no traditional like peace officer. Let's go back to common law, back to reason, and get rid of some of these crazy laws. It's always about the police. And I've been telling you guys for months that what they really need to focus on is deleting laws, because the police are upholding a lot of unnecessary laws. And because of that, you get an angry populace when everything you do is illegal. So that's going to create more crime and people not liking the police, and it spirals out of control. So you don't even need as many police as you have when you don't have as many laws to enforce. The problem is we know that the police have been used as a revenue generation scheme for a lot of these large cities and small cities too. And that's kind of what we're faced with now, is policing has become a bit of the police industrial complex, part of the prison industrial complex, and they're all together, working together in tandem. And it's kind of out of control. Jeff, we the people do have the right to delete. Jeff asks, we the people do not have the right to delete the laws, do we? Well, I mean, you do under the original Constitution. You certainly would have the right to delete laws. I don't. I think it would be done, through elections. But now many people are really worried about the partisan nature of the people counting the votes. We saw how they were trying to block people from viewing with cardboard last time. A lot of political activists now get jobs counting the ballots. Post office, highly political organization, delivers the ballots. Voting machines, all kinds of backdoor payoffs between governors and politicians on those voting machines. Not trustworthy, has the appearance of impropriety and easily able to be manipulated. So I don't know. I think it's going to be hard for you, Jeff, but I think it's possible. Now, this whole thing about Trump wanting to give immunity, I thought, look, rather than me tell you, let's let Judge Joe Brown tell you what he thinks, and then I'll get into my slideshow on qualified immunity, where it comes from, why President Trump really doesn't have much say one way or another over state law when it comes to qualified immunity, and that basically qualified immunity is a judicial construct and we need to attack it in a different way. I don't think that he's going to get very far with executive orders. And I honestly think that what Trump is doing is more political than anything else. But I think it's a negative for him because, and you can tell me in the sidebar what you think, but it looks like Trump was really coming out with the black male vote because of all of these political persecutions, obvious political persecutions against him by Soros prosecutors, right? So he was getting that blackmail vote, and then coming and doing this, it's a real problem. So, conservative Black America has called out, I guess, Judge Joe Brown to be the spokesperson who's going to tell you why he thinks what Trump is talking about is not a bad thing. And then I'm going to get into the actual law. Good seeing you, Plead the Fifth. How you doing, buddy? And then Kennedy. Yeah, Dr. Donna Walter. I'm not sure about RFK myself. I think he's got some things. I like it that he's exposed big pharma. That's pretty much it, though. But yeah, Donna Walter, you've got some valid points. Let's listen to what Judge Joe Brown says. Notice I'm not trying to take sides here, and you guys all know I don't like the idea of qualified immunity. I think it's a terrible thing. I think any kind of immunity creates bad behavior. It allows human nature and greed and the urge for power and promotion to come into play when you have immunity. I mean, pharma has immunity, right? I mean, they can't even be sued for negligence, right? So, I mean, think about that, how dangerous that is. I mean, gosh, we can talk about that in another show, but anytime you have an immunity situation, you're putting people who donate money to your political campaigns above other people that don't, above your constituency. Think about that. That's pretty terrible. But I'm going to let you guys listen to Judge Joe Brown, so at least you can hear both sides. Because the one girl at the beginning, you saw Vox, you saw all the typical leftist sources. So, I'm going to let both sides speak since there's a dividing line between left and right. However, I do think Judge Joe Brown is probably more of a libertarian, but I don't know. Sometimes he doesn't come off like a full-on conservative, but he doesn't come off like a full-on liberal either. Let's hear him out. Let's make sure I got volume, and let's go for it.
Damn. But one thing I would ask you though, how you feel about Trump saying that he want to get a police immunity?
It's what you have to understand what he's saying. Immunity is immunity, but it's qualified. In other words, if you're doing your job, okay. But if you ain't doing your job, it ain't okay. Like, for example, right here in the Memphis, there's a case where 5 black cops got indicted for beating this guy to death, right? He had Crohn's disease, Tyree Nichols. So if it had been police randomly stopping a random citizen, that's one thing. But the point is the allegations is that the victim was screwing the baby mama of one cop, screwing the wife of another cop, and trying to screw a third cop's wife. So they found him, told him to back off. He wouldn't. So they went looking for him to beat his behind, which they did. But he had Crohn's disease and he died of the after effects. Now, that's the story in the streets. So is that cop action? No, that's all personal. That has nothing to do with an immunity situation. The argument doesn't even come in because it didn't have anything to do with police work.
All right, so I don't know. It just sounds like they call that a red herring in law. So bottom line is qualified immunity is something that courts offer, and I'm gonna let you look. Trump does not sound good on this issue. I'm not gonna lie. Being somebody who supports individual rights and somebody who knows how corrupt some police officers have been in the past, let's go ahead and hear him out.
Why should someone like that officer have immunity, in your opinion?
Immunity?
Immunity.
I don't know the exact case, but I saw something, and it didn't look good to me. It didn't look good to me. Are you talking with the water, right?
Yeah, well, police unions are not backing this person either.
Okay.
But again,
they're going to be charging the officer? I guess they're charging the officer.
So why should he receive immunity?
Well, he might not. I mean, it depends. It depends on what happens. I'm talking about people that are much different cases than that. We need people to protect ourselves. And by the way, in Chicago, as an example, a few weeks ago, July 4th weekend, they had 117 shootings and 17 deaths. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. We need to have our police officers have the respect and dignity back.
So I don't know about all that. I understand that the argument. So the argument is that starting with Obama and BLM, that the police have been treated unfairly compared to how they used to be treated. And I guess there's another argument that since they have qualified immunity, that makes them more able to commit crimes against people and not be getting sued and whatnot because they get the qualified immunity. So the other side of the argument is that since there's been more openness and more being able to film the police and kind of catch them in the act, that society has lost respect for them because of that. And then, of course, my argument is that it's the politicians with passing all these crazy laws that have caused most of these problems. When I was growing up, like I said, when my dad was growing up, the police would come and watch the guy's drag race on the 22 freeway while it was under construction. And it was cool. That kind of stuff there's no more community policing. The laws are so voluminous and the cities are always cash strapped and they're always trying to, build new buildings and get nicer cars, better offices. Public servants it's just about seeking power and money now. There's no longer the old way of just wanting to be a public servant. That's gone. Now public servants make more money than the average working man. It's insane. So, hey, Stacy, good to see you. Really nice to see you guys. I'm really glad to have all you guys. So, yeah, now Roger says qualified immunity only matters in this life. They will all face judgment. Yeah, that's probably true. But remember, qualified immunity just means it's qualified. So, if the officer is engaged in frolic and detour or acting outside the course and scope of their duties, then they're not acting with any kind of qualified immunity. They're out there. They can be sued personally, and that's really what qualified immunity is about, guys. Is that qualified immunity makes it to where, in a civil case, a civil rights case, that you can't go after the officer's personal assets unless you pierce the veil of qualified immunity, right? So the problem with that is most of these officers don't make that much money, and they're experts at concealing assets and hiding things. So even if you were to pierce the veil of qualified immunity, how are you going to collect on the judgment? So your main source of judgment collection is going to be from the police department. And you run into a lot of other problems too when you try to sue the cop personally and argue that there's no immunity, and you can actually get the police to try and the department to try and get off the hook, trying to blame it all on the cop and saying that he was never acting within the course and scope. So you got to be careful. You make sure you talk to a lawyer before you make any of these arguments. But now Donna Walter says that, and I'm glad we're having this discussion because so many people are so confused about this and it's just so polarized. But Dr. Walter says the states that have supposedly done away with qualified immunity have shown to still have problems. Some states limit it to so many dollars. Yeah, I know Colorado, I guess, did away with it or something, and it didn't really make much of a difference as far as stopping the police from violating people's rights. It still happens all the time. I honestly think that having less laws is the real answer, and then coming up with probably overturning Terry versus Ohio would be a great start. It's just crazy, this reasonable articulable suspicion argument and all these other arguments to basically obviate getting a warrant. I know BZ Watchdog has his own theory about like maybe always forcing a sergeant or a lieutenant to come out. Like maybe that's a good idea. I don't know, guys. I agree with Greg Manager that police should be equal to all people. And, when I was growing up, there was this book, and we'll get into some videos in a minute, but there was this book that I read because I'm Swedish by heritage, Norwegian and Swedish, a little bit of Scottish. And my dad had this book about Sweden. And there was a story in there about a police officer, with his nightstick or whatever on a corner. And I guess like a horse and carriage or something like that. There was like a car accident, something like that. Somebody got run over. And there was like a tourist, like an American there. And he asked the cop, why aren't you doing anything to help the guy in the street? He said, because in our country, the public has a duty to look after each other, and everybody else in the whole area was all out in the street helping the guy. And the police officer was basically there just to direct traffic to make sure nobody got hurt. And so, oh, wow. Thanks, Roger. Super chat. I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. I haven't been pulling in any super chats or book sales for a while now. But anyways, this is going to be a good one for you guys. This will be a good show. Hey, Plead the Fifth. It's always cool to have you here with us, man. And then Robert Holland. Anyway, so, the traditional, European style model was always that people looked after each other, and you didn't really need the British model kind of screwed things up, I think. I mean, that the whole British UK policing system that we sort of modeled ourselves after, but we sort of armed our cops, made it a little different. I just don't think it's the good model. I think the sheriff, where it's elected, the sheriff is elected, and because it kind of makes people want to live in towns where they know each other. And, the sheriff sort of is on the side of the people. That's kind of what I think you need to be looking for. But, yeah. Plead the Fifth. Keep it up. Yeah, Roger. Hoorah. So let me see here. Let me see if I got any other cool videos here. So I've got this video from this girl. Let me see if I can get it up on the screen. This is kind of an interesting one. Just give me a second here, guys. Trying to find this doggone. Well, I think that's her. All right. I don't know if you guys can see her, but we're going to go ahead and let her talk for a minute. She's kind of going on. I don't think she likes Trump. I don't think a lot of these guys like Trump, man.
Your boy?
My boy.
Your boy?
Who?
To Trump. Oh, he's wilding. Now, Trump said if he wins the election, that he will grant officers immunity. And I thought that this was wild.
Definitely wild, coming off of the whole Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
When he was president and shit was going crazy.
Yes. Also, right after the shooting, the killing that we all seen on camera with Sonya Macy.
Yes.
This is one of like the things that's very, very like serious to me.
Yeah.
Is we are seeing Black people lose their lives on camera, and for the person who's running for office to say, I'm going to grant officers immunity is all reason why we all need to get out and vote.
Man, that's a fact. And the thing is, granting officers full immunity for everything. Like right now, you're seeing officers being prosecuted for crimes they commit in uniform. Full immunity means that they can do anything they want.
Them niggas gonna start tripping.
They pulling you out your car, illegal searches, kicking in doors, shooting niggas, the whole nine. So make sure you register to vote.
So I got to tell you, I mean, that's totally disinformation what these guys are talking about. There's no discussion about any kind of full immunity or any of that kind of stuff. But you know who funds all these social media channels and stuff. So that's to be sort of assumed. Have not seen the crime statistics, Asteroth the Grim. But yeah, so anyways, we're going to go ahead and let this guy keep talking. But I'm just always taken aback by the way they take it to the next level. I know he was talking about qualified immunity, but we're going to get into federal and state and what kind of power the president really has in a minute. But let's hear this.
I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm just telling you to exercise.
Vote for Kamala. Vote for Kamala.
There you go. There's an endorsement for Gina Views.
Yeah.
So there you go. So you kind of know where that's going. I mean, it's, that's the Democrat propaganda, right? That's what sucks about all the information we have. It's all so polarized. You can't even have a decent discussion about anything. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. By the way, give me a bunch of OTVOs for Overturn Terry versus Ohio. And thanks again, everybody, for joining me. It's been a rough day. I've been up since like 0500, completely exhausted. And really, really excited to have you guys here. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, right on, Mama Lion, yeah. We're going to talk about whether or not, on the narrow issue of whether or not Donald Trump can give state cops immunity, right? We're just going to talk about that narrow issue. We're not going to get too far off base. But I want to just throw a few things out at you, and that's that when a state law enforcement officer is sued in a federal court, okay, I just want to break down some of the nuances. When a state law enforcement officer, or even a federal, but in this case, state, because we're talking about state cops, that's what this argument is about. When that individual is sued in a state court under Title 42, Section 1983, the officer can assert qualified immunity as a defense. And in these cases, federal courts will apply the federal doctrine of qualified immunity. So this is a federal standard created by federal courts. That's what qualified immunity is. I just want you guys to understand that. Now, state law also offers some state laws sort of have adopted the same concept of federal qualified immunity for state civil rights cases. Copy me, copy that. So there are sometimes you can bring a state civil rights violation. Like in California, we have the Unruh Civil Rights Act and stuff like that. So bottom line is you can have state law immunity and you can have states sort of do away with qualified immunity. Like Colorado, I guess, drastically did away with or got rid of completely qualified immunity. And I think that's what Dr. Donna Walter was talking about, or one of my other guests, maybe it was Diesel, but it was one of you guys. We were talking about qualified immunity and how the states that have done away with it, they really haven't seen a decrease in officers violating their oaths or hurting people and that kind of stuff. So I don't know, but I think it's probably too soon to tell. And I don't trust the numbers anyways, because they can always be manipulated so badly. The bottom line is let me see here. So it's, if you bring a civil rights case in a state court where there is no qualified immunity assertable, then there's no qualified immunity. So you can always remember that, right? You can always bring your civil rights case in a state court if qualified immunity doesn't apply. If not, sometimes the state court will have a lower qualified immunity threshold, easier to pierce the veil of qualified immunity. So let me see here. I've got an example. Colorado got rid of qualified immunity, basically. New Mexico eliminated qualified immunity for a lot of public officials, not just cops, for certain claims. So they've all kind of got a hodgepodge. But state courts can interpret state constitutions and statutes pretty much the way they want to. And if they find that a state officer violated state constitutional rights, they can decline to grant qualified immunity. And again, it's just like sort of like a little buffer that keeps people from being able to just, sue a cop personally and go after their assets. That's kind of what qualified immunity does. It sort of gives a presumption that what the cop did was being done in the course and scope of his duties or her duties. It's kind of weird. We could do a whole new show about that. It's just kind of a funky thing. But let's get into the slideshow really quick, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. See if I can add this bad chicken to the stage again. Okay. So let's just kind of get into it. So no, Trump can't give state cops qualified immunity. That is just pure propaganda. So for all you people who are making your voting decision based upon this, take this to heart and listen to what I have to say. For me, I think it's more of a political stunt. I don't think he can do anything to increase or decrease any police officer's qualified immunity, especially at a state level. Not maybe at the federal level, he can issue some kind of an executive order, which probably would be found unconstitutional, even by a majority conservative court. Conservative courts do tend to lean a little libertarian on issues like this. They'll never let a president just assert a power that it would normally be afforded to their purview, to their torch of power when it's handed to them. So I don't think the Supremes are going to go for that. So no. A president, including President Trump, does not have the authority to offer state police qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that shields government officials, including law enforcement officers, from liability for civil damages, provided their actions did not violate clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. Okay. The origin and jurisdiction of qualified immunity is established and governed by federal law, and particularly through interpretations of the Civil Rights Act of 1871, Title 42, Section 1983 of the United States Code, by the U.S. Supreme Court. So it's U.S. Supreme Court has come up with this doctrine of qualified immunity, which Chile de Castro talks about a lot. And basically it applies to federal law enforcement officers, but it can be applied to state courts and state officers when they are sued for federal civil rights violations. The application and scope of qualified immunity are determined by courts. Judges decide whether or not qualified immunity applies in a specific case. And hold on. And it's based on legal precedent or precedent. Okay. That's the bottom line. And that looked kind of cool right there, right? Hey, ladies. All right. Legislative changes. Hey, we got 268 in here. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And by the way, guys, I missed Chile de Castro's show last night. So I'd like to hear about it in the sidebar. I'm going to try to watch it when I'm done with this. But go check him out. Make sure to like and subscribe. I know he just passed 600,000. Make sure to support him because he's having a lot of battles right now. He's trying to help people fund their cases and defend their cases, their criminal cases against them where they're asserting their First Amendment rights. And him being locked up that long time made it hard. So any of my mods, I added a bunch of new mods the other day. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did add a bunch of new mods, and yep, threw some people some wrenches and stuff. So just make sure to check out his channel. So Willie, you're telling me my sound is too loud? Let me know. I'll try to mess around with the feed or whatever. Yeah. Oh yeah, Roger. I mean, that was so awesome. There's no substitute for victory, right? What do they say in the Navy SEAL community? It pays to be a winner. Notice how the whole frauditor community just basically went silent. I mean, we sunk them, right, guys? We stayed loyal, and we learned a valuable lesson that you don't put your finger up in the wind and try to figure out what way the political winds are blowing. You do the right thing, and you try to make it happen. And That's what you do. And you stay loyal to your friends. And, hey, look, we could have all lost and been the laughing stock of everyone forever. But we rolled the dice, like the proverbial dice, and we won, guys. So give yourselves all a pat on the back for our victory. Okay, sound is good. Thanks. Thank you, Willie. Okay, so changes to the doctrine of qualified immunity would require legislative action by Congress, potentially followed by judicial interpretation. So, yeah, I mean, Trump could get a Republican Congress to try to push for something, and I doubt that it would happen. But if he did, he could potentially get legislative action, but it wouldn't have any effect on state qualified immunity. That would be up to the states to decide. It would be akin to the Roe versus Wade sort of situation. Hey, Brett Ray, thanks. Coffee time. Brett bought me a coffee. Thanks, guys. Thanks for supporting my channel. I mean, the only difference would be it's not totally like the Roe case, but it has a similar effect, that it's a states' rights issue. If a state wants to pass or create some kind of a situation where they're, wanting to give more protection to a police officer, well, they could pass their own qualified immunity law or choose not to follow the federal qualified immunity laws. Where the federal qualified immunity law is going to come into play is when you bring a federal civil rights case in federal court. That's 100% of the time you're going to be dealing with that. But a good lawyer can often overcome qualified immunity. But again, sometimes you don't really want to overcome qualified immunity. You want to just be focused on getting your money from the department. The department ultimately would, fire this guy. That would be your hope, right? Because they become a liability to the department. Even though they ship them around a lot, at some point they become too much of a liability, like this guy that face planted our friend Carolina in Fort Worth. By the way, give me a bunch of ones for Carolina in Fort Worth for her bravery, for standing up and fighting back against the great Leviathan. And yeah, Roger, I know what you're saying. Everybody. So Roger says that he thinks that Chile can be a Neanderthal in his tactics, but his heart is in the right place. My heart is the same. I want the best. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think, Chile said it, I think, when on one of his casts, that he was going to change a little bit after what happened last time, as far as his tactics went. I mean, he's a smart guy. He'll figure it out. I'm proud of the guy. The fact that he went through what he went through and won, stuck to his guns. I mean, that is one brave individual. Give me a bunch of ones again for Chile, guys. Give me a bunch of OTVOs. That was really amazing. He definitely deserves our congrats. Now, anyways, if you want to, push the qualified immunity thing as a President Trump or whatever, you're not going to be able to do it really through executive action. And I think, he got put on the spot pretty heavily by these people who were asking him questions like, what about this dude? He's just waxed this lady or whatever. You want to offer him qualified immunity? And I think I would just step back and go, I don't think any judge would uphold qualified immunity. I don't think a court, kind of like what Judge Brown said, I don't think a court would extend qualified immunity to a case that egregious. The problem is there are cases that often are less egregious that fall through the cracks. Those are the ones that I'm concerned about. But I think this is less about legislative action and more about putting libertarian-minded, like civil libertarian-minded judges into power that truly are independent of the political class. And I just don't know that that's possible. But I think that really is the answer, guys. I think it truly is. So if you have any ideas to help us achieve that, please let me know. Now, while qualified immunity as it relates to federal law is a federal doctrine, states have the power to enact their own laws regarding liability and immunity for state law enforcement officers. Some states have already passed laws and modified qualified immunity. So we've talked about that. So pretty much, that was the whole thing. I wanted you guys to understand that it's not like this, thing where Trump gets elected and he can just automatically create more immunity. And I have not read or heard anything about President Trump or if he gets elected, President Trump trying to create absolute immunity or total immunity, which would be like beyond what even judges have, right? Like judges even have judicial immunity, which is a form of sovereign immunity, whereas my understanding of qualified immunity is more of a judge-made sort of rule. I don't even think it really comes directly from the king's sovereignty rules. I'll do some more research on that, but either way, it has the same effect of some form of a sovereign idea of where you have the shield of being protected from violating the rights of the citizenry, because it has been decided that in order to carry out your ministerial duties, you could make a mistake once in a while and violate someone's rights. And that's where it comes from. Do you guys understand that? Give me a bunch of ones if you guys understand what I'm talking about, because I really want you guys to understand, because man, this political stuff is just out of control. I mean, like I said earlier, there's a lot of policies about Trump that I really like. I really liked the Second Amendment deal. I thought those justices really did justice for the Second Amendment. Finally, we got courts to uphold the intent of what our founders wanted. That was amazing. But a lot of other dumb stuff. Having a secure border was amazing. But like the whole emergency authorization for this, thing that you can't even talk about, because if you mention it, the people who fund these big social media companies, people who give them billions of dollars in advertising money, will shut down your account, take you out, try to hurt your business, you name it, man. They have unbelievable amounts of power. Sponsor the Grammys. I mean, they got the youth completely brainwashed into thinking this stuff is safe and effective. And, and so that kind of makes me lean a little bit towards RFK, but then again, like you guys, a lot of you guys are saying, man, that guy's bad news too. He's definitely a gun grabber, and there's some questionable things. I like it that he did PI, personal injury cases, against pharma. I've done cases against the pharmaceutical industry as well. And man, dangerous stuff going on, man, like really bad. And so it's hard when you're not somebody when you become a critical thinker, when you're homeschooled or your parents really educated you in the classics, right? And you didn't allow the educational industrial complex to brainwash you too much, right? Peer pressure, all that stuff. When you have those capabilities, it's really hard to figure out who to vote for or what to do. And sometimes you want to throw your hands up because you don't know what on earth are you going to do, because you don't fall into anybody's category or group. I mean, what do you guys do? What are you guys going to do? I don't know. Yeah, Brett Ray, like, being a Marine, especially, I'm going to always be the one that's going to be more towards the patriotic flag waver kind of thing, because that's my flag, that's what I was willing to lay my life down for. And many before me actually did, so it's it just sucks that the parties have become so polarized, that like the Democrats are now like associated with being flag burners and kneeling before the flag, and the Republicans are identified as the flag wavers, and there's nothing in between. You don't have any options. You wear an American flag on your shirt. Some places you go to the wrong place, people look at you like you're crazy, like you're a racist or something. And that just doesn't make sense, because we're Team USA, man. I look at it like, we're all on the same team. We're all football players, right? And we're all like, I might be California, you might be Texas. We're all we all play for different teams, but we're football players. But our league is Team USA. That's our NFL. We're Team USA. That's how we have to be, and it just sucks, when you have a house divided against itself like it is right now. But let's get back on topic with respect to qualified immunity and Trump's powers. What's my verdict? My verdict is, I don't think that Trump has the ability, if he does become president, to strengthen qualified immunity laws. I have not seen any evidence that he intends to offer absolute immunity to police officers. And I believe that a lot of this has to do with a lack of education and people just watching, CNN or MSNBC and not really paying attention or understanding. So again, these are judicial constructs, and they'll have to be changed judicially or through legislative action where a law is passed to simply abolish it. And once that law is passed, I guarantee you it's going to go right back up to the Supremes, and it'll probably be ruled unconstitutional, because the doctrine of qualified immunity is a doctrine that does have its origins in common law. And there is just like police don't have a duty to protect you, right? Police have no general duty to protect individuals. Their job is to protect the government and government property. That's what police are supposed to do. So there you go. I think that it's kind of a dumb political maneuver for Trump to try to talk about this or bring it up, because he's going to lose a lot of guys like you, a lot of white guys like me, and definitely a lot of the black people who were on the Trump train. They're not going to like this, because that community recognizes for the last, I don't know, 100 or more years, that they don't like the police. They feel like they're targeted unfairly by police. And you can't attack people and put them down for feeling a certain way. You have to try and understand why they feel that way and try to find a way to resolve the problem. I think one of the main problems is just we have too many laws. And then, of course, there's an arbitrary and capricious enforcement. They need to keep the prisons filled. So they need to have some people in prison, and they go after the poor people who can't afford a good defense for that. And then as far as raising funds, now they're going after the people who are well-heeled, who have nice cars, to raise money off of them. So they raise money through the prison industrial complex by targeting poor people, many of whom are black. That's probably what's going on, right? And then they raise money from the wealthier people and fleece them with crazy traffic stops and goofy nonsense, or like they did with Chile for filming, right? They put the guy away for 4 months and they made a ton of money off of that. What do they make? Over $1,000 a day per prisoner. And he's there for, I don't know, how long was he there for? 120 days or something. I mean, $120,000 they made off of Chile just from that, probably more, right? I mean, think about that. Plus the lawyers that had to get involved, he had to pay out of pocket. That pays into the system too. Court fees, right, that the lawyer pays. I mean, it's such a racket, man. I always tell you guys, stay away from the courts. If you need help with the legal issue, even if I can't help you, I'll try to help you find someone who can. I specialize in things like motorcycle accidents, big rig trucks that get in catastrophic wrecks on the freeway, because that's what I'm good at. It's what I've done for so long. But occasionally I'll do a tight handcuff case or a police shooting. And then, of course, like when one of my friends or family members slips and falls at a Walmart. But that's kind of the extent of what I do. So I want you guys to know that this stuff that I do on the show with you is my passion. I really love civil rights law and common law, American common law, and legal history, American common law history. And by the way, I'll plug myself. In my book on my journey to becoming a practicing lawyer with no law degree or undergrad, I talk about, some of that heritage, like, Abraham Lincoln, he didn't go to law school. Our original Supreme Court justices, there were no law schools, it was about learning the law in a law office study. That's what it was. And it started originally under the Knights Templar outside the gates of London. And I actually have another book I'm working on that talks about that history as well. And I actually have some videos. If you Google Michael Eline history of Knights Templar in law or something like that, you'll see my videos. They're older. They're not on this channel. The ones that I did a while ago on one of my other channels from my law office when I really didn't know what I was doing, but kind of go into a little bit. But that's what I love doing. The activist part, the natural law that your rights come from the universe, like quantum mechanics, an all-powerful creator, and that your DNA has been encoded to know right from wrong. And you just know it, right? And that your rights can't be taken away by man. What gave a politician, just because of a vote, because you learned how to manipulate people, any more power over you than the universe, right? So that's the idea about natural law. Give me a bunch of ones if you understand. So I hope you guys enjoy my channel, because it's, you know, it's more about reclaiming your rights from the universe, right? And standing up for what you believe in and forming parallel communities. Because, you know, like, I think his name's Larry Fink, the guy with BlackRock. He says they have to force behaviors. He wants to force his, what I consider to be like Luciferian behaviors on society and on the people. And I think that we can create parallel systems, and we can leave his universe and form our own. Like all of us right here in the sidebar, all of us probably have a business or a project that you're working on that could help you support your family. You know, maybe one of you has a dairy farm or whatever, you know, like an Amish dude. We should all be doing business together and buying from each other. You know, who needs Amazon when we can be our own Amazon? And I'm even willing to venture to guess that we'd be willing to pay a little bit more money for shipping and handling or whatever, to do business with each other and support like-minded people who really want to take back our freedom and our common law, fundamental, unalienable rights as Americans. And you know, and if people do want to come in, awesome. Love having as many different colors and types, but make sure, like other countries do, that we vet them, that they have an appreciable skill that they can provide, that they won't be taking a job away from a local person, and that we don't just let them vote. We don't give them anything for free, because we want to make sure we get the best, right? We want to get the best people. So we don't want to put tax money out to act as sort of a magnet to get the worst people, right? Who would be a succor to society, you know, because like our founders, that, you know, welfare and things like that were like unheard of. You had so much pride in yourself that you'd want to be successful and do well, that you wouldn't even consider accepting welfare, right? We need to get back to a mindset like that, where we're all self-sufficient, and that safety net's there for like the real bad problems, you know, like people who are really hurting. Certainly, it shouldn't be going to people who don't belong, you know, who haven't been properly vetted. You know, that's all I'm saying. You know, not being racist or bigoted, just like, you know, try to find out who the heck is coming into your country, and if they are coming in, sure, give them a pathway to citizenship if they can do something good for the country, and you don't have to give them free things, because once you give somebody a free check, they're never ever going to go off that money, and they'll always be voting for the party that offers them the free stuff once they do get the right to vote. So think about that. Now, let me see. Briwanthus says BlackRock has at least 20% stake in over 80% of Fortune 500 companies. Way too big and need to be stopped. Buying up homes that first-time home buyers need and turning them into rental properties. Yes, I've heard that. So a lot of you guys don't know, but like, I guess BlackRock is part of this globalist thing where they buy up all these corporations, and I guess they're part of the World Economic Forum thing. I guess there was a book called The Great Replacement. People try to say it's like racist or whatever, but it basically talks about how these global conglomerates want to replace like the rebellious European people with more people from like sub-Saharan Africa, who they can like basically create like a caliphate where they'll be submissive to the state once they get in control. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true, but it makes sense, right? Because we know that like Klaus Schwab's dad was, you know, part of that Third Reich, right? And that really the same fundamental ideas of fascism by billionaire rule are part of, in my opinion, are part of the World Economic Forum roadmap. The only difference is now it's the white people are the bad people and everyone else is the victim. But other than that, very similar goals, you know, subjugation, submission to the state, 15-minute cities, really scary stuff for people who are like the rebellious Americans who want to go out on the weekend and, you know, go out motorcycle riding or, you know, race their speedboats or something like that. So yeah, I don't know where this is all headed, guys. Yeah, you'll own nothing and you will own nothing and yeah, here's what you'll get. Let me show you guys. This is funny. I always show this. This is what happens under Klaus Schwab. Hold on. There he is.
Oh,
Play it again.
you don't have any papers?
In a concentration camp with you. Let's do it again. Wait.
Where are your papers, Mav? Where are they? Oh, you don't have any papers?
Yeah. Isn't that the best? Colonel Klink, right? Oh man, it's really great seeing all you guys. I'm super happy that you guys showed up. Normally I try to pop in on Chili and talk on his streams or chat with y'all. I just been really busy. I'm sorry about that. Hey, what's the matter with you? Yeah, we're all bad. Everybody's bad. So let me see if I have anything else to show you guys. I mean, I don't know. What did you guys think of Judge Brown? I mean, he was basically, it sounded like he was kind of going off in a left field, but he was just basically saying kind of what I was saying at the beginning, which is that qualified immunity is a judicial created thing. You can still go after an officer personally as long as the officer acted outside the course and scope of their duties. You pierce that qualified immunity. It just creates a presumption that they're immune. So, hey, thanks a lot, Plead the Fifth. I appreciate that. And so, I mean, don't let that be the end all be all about how you're gonna vote for someone, if you're gonna vote at all. I think you need to be concerned about other stuff too. And I don't know what the answer is. So give me a bunch of ones if you guys know who. Well, how about this? Give me a bunch of ones if you think RFK has good ideas. Give me a bunch of twos if you don't. And we'll just go down the line because I want to see what you guys think. Some of the stuff that he says, man, really makes me like excited. Like, wow, this guy's really legit. I got to tell you, seeing Trump get shot like that and the way he reacted, I think that really, being a Marine and being a man who, believes in that whole, always act, what do they call that? Act with male bearing, always act with a strong, masculine bearing. I hope that makes sense. I mean, seeing that was pretty impressive to me. That was pretty impressive. I was blown away. Now, My Lou says somebody dumped a dead bear in Central Park. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, I'm not buffering. I don't see any buffering going on. I do have some weird kind of lighting issues going on. I'm not really sure about all that. Yeah, no, let's go Lions. Yeah, no, what I'm saying is I was very impressed with that, the way that, he got shot and instead of cowering, he was like going fight, fight, fight. And that, I think that resonates with that sort of, and every dude that, wants to be a tough guy, we can identify with that. Like, the bravery, like, every dude who, like, if you ever wanted to be a Marine officer and wanted to lead men into combat, that's exactly the kind of leadership that you think of on the battlefield. My dad told me the story about this captain who smoked a corn pipe and they were at Quezon and they would get like hundreds of rounds an hour landing on the base. And this dude would just walk around outside the fighting holes on the perimeter, encouraging everybody as the rounds came in, and just smoked the pipe. And he was really steely. And my dad always talked about that guy, how brave he was, and how that's his vision of how a man should be. Always stuck with me. So yeah, I'm not saying that I think he's the man or anything like that. Let's go Lion. If you've been watching the program, you'll see that I'm pretty guarded about where I go with my praise. I mean, I'll praise some policies, I'll praise some mannerisms. That's for sure. Yeah, one of the problems with him is, my dad met him once and he said that because my dad had read his book, The Art of the Deal, back in the 80s. And it was like a really big deal, that book. And so he'd met him, I guess, at a book signing or something in New York, and he wouldn't shake anyone's hand. And, I guess he was afraid of germs, and he came off really condescending and kind of made some offhanded remarks about his then wife. And just my dad just didn't like him. But like me, he did, the policies, just like, you have that crazy guy in your unit. Like if you're in the military, you can count on him, but you'd never want to be hanging out with him in town, kind of a thing. Just a kind of a weird thing. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's like you want to support a lot of the stuff, but then they just do so many other things that are so outrageous. You just don't even want to be around them. Yeah. So my dog Rex. Yeah, right on, Roger. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Roger. Thanks, guys, everybody, for supporting me. Thanks for the super chats too. I really appreciate it, guys. And thanks for the 200 in the views, guys. That's cool that we have a lot of people that watch the show now. I'm super happy about that. Hopefully you guys are learning some cool stuff. At least hopefully you're not just falling for whatever you hear on the news. And so if you guys have an issue that you want me to dissect that you're not sure about, where you're hearing one side from like Fox controlled opposition and another one from CNN controlled opposition, and you want me to do some research for you, I'll do that. That's kind of the stuff that I'm into, as long as it has, some kind of an activist thing about, it supports the Bill of Rights, natural law. It's going to help further the goal of creating parallel systems and rescuing the republic essentially from these alphabet agencies and all these people who have been totally compromised, and they're not standing for the Constitution anymore. So I'm hoping that we can all come together that way. So yeah, and let's go to Lions. I'm not saying anything like that, but I think that a lot of people who are successful have had bankruptcies and they've rebounded. So bankruptcies are usually a form of restructuring, where you can get in and restructure and find a way to pay off your debtors, even if it's at a reduced rate, whatever it takes to try to find a way to get everybody handled and try to save your business. And so there's chapter 11s, there's chapter 13. So I would have to know more about it, but I'm not going to, get into too much about that, because this is more about whether or not Trump, if he gets elected, is going to be able to strengthen qualified immunity. And so I guess the answer again is going to be no, unless he gets legislation passed and he signed it. And that would be an indirect way that he could do it. And then the other one would be, if somehow the courts were to change qualified immunity at the Supreme Court level, if the right case was brought up, that would have nothing to do with President Trump. And probably whoever he appoints to the bench isn't really going to have much of a say either, at least not in the short term. It's going to ultimately be more a states' rights issue, guys. I think that's where you're going to be with that. That's where you're going to want to focus on. And that's why you should, look at what Chile de Castro has to say, because I think a lot of the things that Chile talks about are going to get you to that spot where you need to be. So let me see here. It's just funny because people hate him so much. I'm looking over in the sidebar and we're talking about qualified immunity, and everybody's talking about all the talking points that you would see on CNN to talk bad about him. It's so polarizing. That's one of the big problems with Trump, is that even if he does win, he's going to probably have his hands tied, because there's such a large segment of the population that hates him. It would almost be like a revenge presidency for the people who are pissed off about the last election, right? But he'd be a lame duck. So I don't know if you guys know what a lame duck is, but lame duck means, so typically a president is going to do his most good for his first term. And then if he does good, then that sort of gives him a whip to get him into a second term. But on his second term, he's what they call a lame duck, because he can't run because you're restricted to 2 terms. So they have a term called lame duck. And because of that, since the Congress now doesn't have to worry about him running for re-election again, right? They don't have to hedge their bets as much. They usually won't pass as much of what the president wants, and it becomes more of a figurehead for that next 4 years. And that's why they call it a lame duck. So Trump would be going in automatically as a lame duck, and that's going to be a difficult one for him. But anyways, that really wasn't the purpose of having this conversation. I just wanted to talk about qualified immunity and whether or not I think that it matters what he says about wanting to increase qualified immunity. And I think that from a propaganda perspective, probably it does, because he's going to consolidate more of the law enforcement vote. But it's kind of dumb because he would have always had the law enforcement vote. I mean, the Border Patrol is not going to vote for the Democrats. The only ones who are going to vote Democrat are going to be like the alphabet federal agencies, because they're all Democrat controlled, like the FBI, CIA. They're all woke now, so they're all going to vote Democrat. But like local police, like municipal police, are not woke, and they're naturally going to vote for Trump. And Trump saying he's gonna increase qualified immunity, he would have got their vote anyway. So give me a bunch of ones if you think it was a dumb idea for him to come up with this strategy, if he thought it was going to help him win the election, because I think it's going to hurt him with black voters too. Black males that were starting to turn towards Trump, they're not going to go for that, for helping police, because they've had probably run-ins in the past with bad cops. We've seen them on Chili's videos all the time, those bad cops who plant drugs on people. We know that probably has happened more than once. So just think about that. There's real people that this kind of stuff happens to, where they'll, take like a bottle of alcohol to police and pour it out, and try to say you have an open container to try to justify a false arrest. So that, that it's dangerous what he's doing by saying he's going to strengthen qualified immunity, because if you don't understand what it means, you're thinking that he's going to make it easier for cops to do that. And I don't see a correlation, honestly. I think there's criminal laws that are going to come into play that are going to do a lot more damage to that cop than a civil lawsuit where there's no qualified immunity. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. And yeah, Jeff, that's what everybody else says too. We all need to vote for none of the above. Well, anyways, it's been a good show. Hopefully you guys learned something. Do you guys have any questions before we close out the show? Have you guys been pulled over or had any problems with the police lately yourselves? Any questions that make you upset? Like, where are your papers? Like this guy. I want to know. Tell me.
Where are your papers, Mav? Where are they? Oh, you don't have any papers?
Yeah. So 999. Yeah. So did you guys have a good time? We had our nice little journey. We got to spend about an hour live. Kind of reminds me of the variety shows we used to get to watch on black and white TV when I was growing up. A really, really big shoe for you tonight. We get to do it with these reaction videos. Let me see here. Yeah, so Let's Go Lions does not like Trump. So everybody give a bunch of ones to Let's Go Lions for sharing with us that Let's Go Lions doesn't like Trump. I appreciate that. I think Shiva for president might be just as good as anyone else. Brew on this. Very good, very good. And definitely Mama Lion, I'm loving it, looking good. Let me see here. I wish I only had the qualified immunity that others have. Yeah, no kidding, man. I got you. Yeah. Well, anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close it out, but hopefully you learned a little bit about qualified immunity and about what I consider to be probably was a bad political move by President Trump to get on this bandwagon about making it easier for police to be able to be immune from being sued and having these qualified immunity defenses. We need to come up with a better system that's fairer to the victims, because we know that police do violate people's rights, and it happens more often than people want to believe. And people are people, and we need to hold the government accountable because they hold a special position of authority. And when they violate that authority, they violate the public trust. And when the public trust is violated, you have people who become angry and they become riotous, and it divides us as a nation. And I encourage all of you to vote for politicians who want to delete laws and not pass more laws, and vote for politicians who uphold the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms to defend yourself vote for politicians who will not flood the country with people that we have no idea who they are, so we can make sure that our wives and children are safe, that we know who's in our country, and that we have the ability to defend against the people who came in here that we don't know about. That's really important, especially if you're a dad. So with that being said, I'll talk to you soon. Plead the fifth. What's the matter, you? It was great seeing you. Clawjaw, I know every 3 seconds someone's rights are being violated. Absolutely insane. And then Willie B hates pigs. Great seeing you again. Love your username. It's hilarious. And you too, Jim Dufit. God bless you. Guys, everybody, thanks so much for the super chats. That was super nice. And the coffees and all that. That was really kind of you guys. I'll do my best to come and do a show tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but I'll do my best. Okay. So with that being said, Semper Fi, do or die. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. It was really great seeing all you guys. Make sure to check out some of my other cool videos too. All right, talk to you soon.